The Mindset Edge. How to Train Your Brain for Relentless Success, written by Ronnie Rowland, published by Growth Literacy Lounge. There's a quiet gap between people who start strong and those who finish relentless. You've seen it. The gym packed in January, empty by March. The entrepreneur with fire in their eyes, gone silent 6 months later. The student, the athlete, the professional, all brimming with potential until life presses down, until motivation wears thin, until discomfort enters the room. That's where most break, not because they lack talent or ambition, but because they never built the inner architecture to outlast resistance. They never trained the only system that truly determines long-term performance, their mindset. You don't need another productivity hack. You don't need a morning routine borrowed from billionaires. You need a framework to train your mind like a professional, because grit isn't mystical. Focus isn't genetic. Mental toughness isn't a gift. It's a skill set, one that begins with how you interpret struggle, how you structure your habits, and how you define who you are under pressure. Here's the truth: your brain is already training itself, every day. The only question is what it's rehearsing. Doubt? Distraction? Defensiveness? Or clarity, conviction, and control? What you repeat, you become, and you don't get to opt out. The loop is running whether you're conscious of it or not. In the words of Dr. Carol Dweck, renowned Stanford psychologist and pioneer of mindset research, becoming is better than being. This book is about that becoming. Not the version that peaks for a week and burns out. The version that builds day by day, deliberate, tested, and unshakable. The Mindset Edge is a manual for the mental athlete. You'll learn to create pressure-proof rituals, reframe pain as a signal, hardwire discipline, and anchor your identity to something unbreakable. Each chapter is a training session. Each idea is a rep. The goal isn't inspiration, it's installation. So if you're tired of bouncing between bursts of motivation and seasons of burnout, this book is for you. It's not about getting hyped. It's about getting hardened. You're not here to feel good. You're here to get strong. Let's train. Chapter 1. The Pattern Machine: Why Your Brain Runs on Loops. Your brain is not a goal-setting machine. It's a pattern-seeking one. Like a thermostat, it doesn't chase what's new or better. It snaps back to what feels familiar. This is why breakthroughs often feel temporary. You set a new goal, find a spark of motivation, make a few moves forward, then retreat to baseline, not because you're weak. Because your brain was wired to survive, not to stretch. It will always pull toward comfort, unless you train it otherwise. Most people never question their mental loops. They wake up and check their phone, react to notifications, rehearse yesterday's worries, and rinse and repeat through a life of automated thought. The problem isn't laziness. It's momentum in the wrong direction. Once your brain locks into a pattern, whether empowering or disempowering, it fights to preserve it. Neural pathways, like trails in the woods, get deeper every time they're walked. Thought patterns are no different. The more often you dwell on frustration, fear, or failure, the more accessible those patterns become. This isn't just theory, it's biology. Neuroscience confirms that your brain conserves energy by forming default paths of least resistance. This is called automaticity. You've experienced it when you drive home without remembering the trip. The same thing happens emotionally. React to stress the same way 10 times, and the 11th is automatic. These loops don't just reflect your mindset, they create it. Thought becomes behavior, behavior becomes identity, and identity locks in your results. But here's the unlock: what is built can be rebuilt. What fires together wires together, and that applies to focus, clarity, and grit. You are not stuck with the mental patterns you inherited, absorbed, or fell into. You are the architect of your inner world. And the raw material of that world is repetition, mental reps. What you rehearse becomes what you reflex. Start here, run a mental audit. For one full day, observe your thoughts as if you're a neutral scientist. No judgment, just data. Every time a recurring idea surfaces, whether it's self-doubt, distraction, frustration, or focus, label it. Ask, is this thought strengthening me or weakening me? Is it pulling me toward growth or toward comfort? Write them down. You'll be shocked by the volume and frequency of certain loops. The purpose of this exercise isn't perfection, it's awareness. Because you cannot change what you do not recognize. Once you start noticing the loops, you've already begun disrupting them. And that disruption is power. It means you're no longer running on old scripts, you're writing new ones. Success doesn't begin with a strategy. It begins with awareness. Before the habits, before the tactics, before the performance hacks, comes pattern recognition. The winners aren't necessarily more talented, they're just more intentional about what plays in their head. While most replay limitations, they rehearse resilience. While others repeat fear, they install focus. And while the average mind avoids tension, theirs is trained to expect it, welcome it, even grow from it. Your brain's greatest asset is its plasticity, its ability to change, but change demands attention. You are either the unconscious result of your patterns or the conscious author of them. Every thought you allow is a vote for the mindset you become. So now you've seen the machine. The next step is reprogramming it. You can't outperform the identity your loops support, but you can break and replace them. That begins tomorrow morning. Because how you begin the day is how you train the brain. Your brain operates in loops, what repeats, wires. Thought patterns are either strengthening or sabotaging your performance. Awareness is the first step to reprogramming your mental defaults. What thought loop do you replay most often, and what might it be costing you? Spend one full day labeling recurring thoughts as strengthening or weakening. Write them down without judgment. Chapter 2. Default versus deliberate, rewiring your daily mindset. The first 10 minutes of your day are not trivial, they're training. You are not just waking up, you're setting mental direction. Most people roll over, grab their phone, scroll through chaos, and wonder why their day feels reactive. That sequence isn't random, it's a ritual. One that programs the brain toward distraction before a single conscious thought is formed. By the time they brush their teeth, their mind have already surrendered control. The default mode is seductive. It asks nothing of you. It waits silently, letting the same stories, the same urges, the same habits creep in. It says, let's just see what happens today. But performance is not passive. It is engineered. High performers don't leave the first moments of their day to chance. They lock in their focus. They tell the brain what matters. They prime the system deliberately, because they know a trained brain obeys, an untrained one wanders. This isn't about morning routines for routine's sake. It's about neural priming. The science is clear. Early inputs create a cascade effect. Your initial mental focus shapes what your brain tags as relevant for the rest of the day. Psychologists call it the reticular activating system RAS, a filter that helps your mind decide what to notice. You give it a directive, and it scans the environment to reinforce it. Start your day scanning for problems? You'll find them. Start with discipline, you'll track toward execution. Deliberate priming begins by replacing passive consumption with intentional direction. Don't scroll. Don't react. Lead. Before the world gets a piece of your mind, give it shape. That doesn't require hours. It requires intent. The edge is built in the first 5 minutes. Here's how: upon waking, sit up, breathe deeply, and declare what the day is for. Say it aloud if you must. Something like, today I choose discipline over ease. I respond, I don't react. I'm the kind of person who finishes what I start. The brain responds to patterns. That phrase, repeated daily, becomes more than words. It becomes an internal compass. Tie it to a short physical cue, splashing cold water on your face, making your bed with precision, or doing 10 push-ups, and now you've engaged the body. Movement signals momentum. You've shifted from passive to active, from default to deliberate. What you're doing is far more than habit building. You're crafting identity, and identity dictates performance. The moment you declare what kind of person you are, your behavior begins catching up. This is the difference between temporary motivation and lasting transformation. Motivation asks, what do I feel like doing today? Identity says, this is what I do, because it's who I am. Understand this, every morning is a reset, or a chance to rewire. A chance to replace autopilot with authorship. Your environment may scream for attention, your inbox may pull you in 5 directions, but the battle was decided in those opening minutes. The rest of the day doesn't dictate your mindset, you already did, and when done consistently, this training doesn't just change mornings, It rewires your mental posture toward life. You've practiced default for years, that groove is deep. But now you're shifting. Deliberate doesn't mean perfect. It means awake. Awake to the fact that your first thoughts set the tone. Awake to the truth that you don't rise to the level of your ambition, you fall to the level of your preparation. Start low effort, you stay low power. Start locked in, and your mind learns to follow that lead. The world will always offer reasons to delay discipline. Your phone, your inbox, your calendar, they all have agendas. But none of them matter until you've defined your own. That happens at the start. Because the edge isn't found later, it's forged before the noise begins. Your brain can be primed deliberately in the first few minutes of the day. Early inputs shape what your brain filters as relevant all day long. A consistent morning cue tied to identity is a force multiplier for mindset. How are you currently starting your mornings, and what are those choices teaching your brain? Tomorrow morning, speak a deliberate identity phrase aloud within 5 minutes of waking. Repeat for 7 days. Chapter 3. Installing Mental Anchors, the Power of Non-Negotiables. Success isn't born from bursts of inspiration. It's built from systems that remove the option to quit. Discipline, when left to motivation, fails, but when wired into routine through non-negotiables, it becomes automatic. This is the invisible advantage elite performers rely on, not because they're stronger, but because they've already decided. While others debate, they execute. While most wonder how to start, they're already mid-rep. The key is that their commitment was made long before the moment of resistance. Non-negotiables are more than habits. They are identity declarations wrapped in action. They signal to your brain, this is who we are, and this is what we do, regardless of how we feel. These anchors create rhythm, reliability, and resolve. They eliminate the inner dialogue that kills momentum. When it's a decision every day, willpower gets taxed. But when it's non-negotiable, it's done before you even think. This isn't about complexity. It's about clarity. A non-negotiable doesn't need to be elaborate. In fact, the more repeatable, the better. Consider cold exposure. Every morning, a cold shower isn't about hygiene, it's a signal, a reminder that discomfort is the doorway. That this body, this mind, shows up regardless of temperature or mood, or journaling wins. Not because you need another to-do item, but because capturing victories teaches the brain what to reinforce. Small acts become large leverage when repeated daily without fail. Non-negotiables are personal, but they must meet 3 criteria. They must be identity-linked, simplicity-driven, and emotionally resonant. Identity-linked means they align with the kind of person you are becoming. Simplicity-driven means they can be executed daily without friction. Emotionally resonant means they trigger a sense of ownership or pride. If a ritual doesn't hit all 3, it won't stick. It will compete with your day instead of anchoring it. The power of a non-negotiable isn't in its size but in its stability. Imagine a mental anchor that starts your day before doubt can speak. Something as small as 5 push-ups, a focused breath, or a handwritten declaration can mark the line between drifting and direction. When repeated consistently, these actions transform into neural cement. Your brain starts to assume, we always do this. This is normal. That's how identity is installed, not shouted, but reinforced. This installation removes the hidden tax of decision fatigue. Think of it like laying track for a train. Once the rail is down, movement becomes automatic. Energy isn't wasted debating the route, it's spent on motion. High performers protect their mental bandwidth by predetermining the first mile of their day. That's what non-negotiables do. They protect your edge from erosion by making key behaviors default, not optional. The result isn't just better mornings. It's a baseline of readiness. A silent commitment that echoes in how you walk, speak, perform, and recover. The discipline starts to bleed into every area. Not because you try harder, but because your brain no longer questions your intent. That's the hidden gift of anchoring behaviors. They don't just move your day, they move your identity. Start small. Pick one non-negotiable in 3 domains: physical, cold water, exercise, mental, visualization, journaling, and strategic, defining one key task. Install them as sacred. Not sometimes, not when convenient. Every day, without fail. Not because they are magic, but because repetition is. Over time, these anchors will do what motivation never can. They'll keep you grounded when chaos hits. They'll harden your resolve when it would be easier to opt out. And most importantly, they'll train your brain to believe what you've declared, that this is who you are, and it's not up for debate. Non-negotiables remove decision fatigue and reinforce identity. Simple, daily rituals signal discipline before motivation is needed. Repetition is what turns action into identity. What's one action you can commit to daily that affirms the person you want to become? Create one non-negotiable behavior and do it every morning for the next 7 days, without exception. Chapter 4. Rituals of Readiness. Design a discipline-inducing environment. Discipline isn't just about willpower, it's about structure. The environment you live in either reinforces your mental edge or erodes it. Every object in your space, every sound you tolerate, every piece of friction or flow, these elements send signals to your brain. Signals that say, stay sharp or slip back. If you want to build relentless success, you can't just train your behavior, you must train the battlefield. Most people underestimate how much their surroundings dictate their choices. They try to install new habits in old systems, they expect clarity in a cluttered room, they chase focus while surrounded by noise. The problem isn't a lack of effort, it's a lack of alignment. Your mind can only sustain what your environment supports. And right now, if you looked around, would your space say discipline lives here? Elite performers don't rely on brute force, they engineer advantage. Their routines aren't heroic, they're automatic. Their spaces are designed to remove drag and add drive. This isn't about aesthetics. It's about utility. If your gym clothes are buried in a drawer, you've added resistance. If your phone sleeps next to your bed, you've invited distraction. Every inch of resistance, every unnecessary decision, is a drain on your mental reserves. You don't need a total overhaul. You need friction in the right places and flow in the right ones. Make discipline easy to begin and distraction harder to access. That's the formula. If reading is your goal, leave the book on your pillow. If journaling is your anchor, leave the pen uncapped and ready. If focus is the aim, clear your workspace the night before. The brain responds to cues. Make sure the cues it sees reflect who you are becoming, not who you've been. Sound, light, and space matter more than most people realize. A silent room sends a message of seriousness. Dim lighting may feel cozy, but can signal relaxation when you need alertness. Even temperature plays a role. Cooler environments boost focus. These aren't minor tweaks, they're performance levers. You don't have to feel motivated when your environment does the prompting for you. Take a close look at your current setup. Is your desk a command center or a dumping ground? Is your morning space designed for momentum or mindless scrolling? These questions matter because your brain is always scanning for feedback. If your space looks chaotic, your mind will echo it. But if it looks locked in, your thoughts follow suit. You are always being trained by what you see, hear, and touch. This is why rituals matter. Not because the actions are special, but because they create sacred space. Lighting a candle, turning off notifications, and standing tall before a task, these small actions signal transition. They tell your nervous system, we're shifting into performance mode now. Over time, these rituals wire in readiness. They become triggers that bypass hesitation. Design your environment as if your future depends on it, because it does. Success isn't spontaneous. It's the natural byproduct of conditions repeated. When the setup screams excellence, average behavior becomes uncomfortable. That's what you want. A space that doesn't tolerate less than your best, a room that expects you to show up, not someday. Today. You're not just decorating, you're programming. Every visible cue is an instruction. Every sound is a command. Every tool in reach is either helping or hindering your goal. Be ruthless about what earns its place. You don't need more effort. You need fewer excuses. Let your environment do the heavy lifting. Your environment influences your mindset more than motivation ever will. Friction should surround distractions. Flow should surround discipline. Small design choices create massive momentum over time. What is one part of your environment that silently works against the mindset you want? Tonight, remove one distraction from your primary workspace and add one cue that signals focus. Chapter 5. The resistance reframe pain as proof, not punishment. Pain isn't the enemy, it's the evidence. When resistance shows up, it doesn't signal weakness. It signals opportunity. Most people misread this moment. They feel discomfort and assume something's wrong. That assumption is fatal to growth, because in reality, pain is proof you're pushing the edge. It's the body and mind recognizing unfamiliar territory. And if you learn to reframe that feeling, it becomes your greatest teacher. What separates elite performers from average ones isn't their tolerance for pain. It's their interpretation of it. They don't view struggle as a sign to stop. They view it as a signal to focus. While others flinch, they lean in. While most ask, why is this so hard? They ask, what is this building in me? The stress is the stimulus. The friction is the forge. The pressure is the proof you're doing real work. Reframing begins with awareness. The next time you feel tension, physical, emotional, or mental, pause and label it. Say, this is resistance. Not a problem. Not a warning. Just feedback. Your brain has been conditioned to avoid pain because pain used to mean danger. But in the arena of performance, discomfort is no longer deadly. It's directional. It tells you where your limits are and gives you the invitation to expand them. Think about strength training. No one expects muscle without strain. You lift, you fatigue, you break down fibers. That pain isn't injury. It's adaptation in progress. Mental development is no different. Growth requires stress. Without it, nothing changes. Your brain doesn't build new resilience through comfort. It builds it through demand. But the meaning you assign to that demand determines whether you back off or break through. This is where high performers install a different script. When they feel resistance, they tell themselves, good, we're in the work now. That single word, good, acts as a trigger. It replaces panic with presence. It reframes the pain as productive, and that shift allows them to stay in it longer, trying to extract more from the moment. To build what most people avoid, mental endurance. Start practicing this by creating a resistance ritual. When you hit a difficult task, a frustrating delay, or a spike of anxiety, don't push it away. Name it. Then write one sentence. This is proof I'm getting stronger. That's not delusion, it's direction. It keeps you from quitting when the payoff is just around the corner. Over time, this practice retrains your nervous system. It makes hard things feel less threatening and more expected. Reframing isn't about pretending pain is pleasant. It's about refusing to be ruled by it. You're not minimizing the discomfort. You're maximizing the meaning. Because pain will visit everyone, but those who win assign it a higher purpose. They use it to chisel clarity, to sharpen grit, to call forth another level that would have stayed buried without the tension. Every breakthrough has a breaking point. The moment you want to stop, when your thoughts scream retreat, that's the threshold. Most turn around there. They've been taught pain is a sign to slow down, but what if it's the sign to speed up your focus? What if it's the test you've been training for? The resistance you feel isn't random, it's perfectly placed, right where your next level begins. That's why you can't afford to waste it. Don't numb it. Don't dodge it. Use it. The more fluent you become in the language of discomfort, the more unstoppable you become. You stop flinching at pressure. You stop fearing fatigue. Because every time you feel resistance, you see it clearly for what it is, not punishment, but proof. You are no longer at the mercy of pain. You're using it to build power. Pain is feedback, not failure. It marks the edge of growth. Reframing resistance turns discomfort into fuel. What you feel as pain is often proof of progress in motion. When was the last time you mistook growth pain for a signal to quit? Today, when discomfort hits, pause and say, good. This is resistance. This is progress. Write down what it's building in you. Chapter 6. Stress is the signal. Why pressure creates performance. Stress is not the enemy of performance. It's the trigger. The same physiological response that drives fear also drives focus. The adrenaline that causes panic in some sharpens others. The difference isn't biology. It's interpretation. High performers are not void of stress. They've simply learned to treat it as fuel. Where others feel overwhelmed, they feel activated. Stress, to them, is not a threat. It's a signal that it's time to perform. Most people were taught to fear pressure, to interpret a racing heart as danger. Pimbi, les stolos mean BP, to view sweaty palms as failure. but those same signs are present in moments of peak performance. The body doesn't distinguish between fear and readiness. What changes the outcome is your response. Stress is neutral. It's your mindset that makes it useful or paralyzing. Once you internalize this truth, stress becomes less something to escape and more something to engage. In psychology, this is known as eustress, beneficial stress that enhances performance. It's the kind of challenge that sharpens, not breaks. Imagine a high-stakes presentation or a championship game. You feel the nerves, the urgency, the intensity. That's your system preparing for peak output. You're not broken. You're primed. But only if your mind doesn't mislabel the signal. Training under pressure is the secret advantage of those who dominate their field. They seek out challenges not just to test themselves but to expand their stress threshold. The greater your exposure, the less fragile you become. Think of it like a vaccine. Small, deliberate doses of pressure make the system stronger. Avoid it, and you stay brittle. Embrace it, and you become durable. You don't rise to the occasion, you rise to the level of your stress training. Start reframing your relationship with pressure by using exposure as a mental gym. Deliberately place yourself in situations that demand presence. Take a cold plunge. Deliver an unscripted speech. Lead a difficult conversation. These aren't obstacles, they're reps. Each time you lean in rather than flinch, you're conditioning your system to respond with focus, not fear. This doesn't just build confidence, it hardens resilience. But exposure isn't enough. You need to recover with intention. Stress is like lifting weights. You break down to build up, but only if recovery follows. The build in space to reflect. To analyze what you felt and how you handled it. This reflection turns pressure from an event into a lesson, and lessons compound into mastery. The point isn't to avoid stress, it's to become someone who knows how to use it. Notice how elite performers describe stress. Words like juice, edge, lock in. They've rebranded the experience. Their self-talk reinforces it. This means I'm alive. This means I care. This means I'm ready. That's not a gimmick, it's neuroscience. Self-talk influences cortisol response, focus, and perception. Your body listens to your mind. Train it to speak with precision. Understand this. The moments you feel most stressed are often the moments closest to growth. They don't mean you're failing. They mean you're at the threshold. Stay there. Breathe there. Perform there. Every rep under pressure is a deposit in your mental endurance account. Most people bounce when it burns. But those who stay long enough adapt. And adaptation is how resilience becomes reflex. If you treat stress like a fire alarm, you'll always run. But if you treat it like a training bell, you'll always rise. Pressure doesn't break the prepared. It activates them. Stress isn't a flaw in the system, it is the system telling you, we're in the game now. Step forward. Lock in. This is your signal. Stress isn't a threat, it's a signal that performance is required. Exposure to controlled pressure builds mental durability. How you interpret stress determines whether it sharpens or shatters you. How have you been interpreting stress, and how has that shaped your performance? Choose one high-pressure task this week, and lean into it with the phrase, "This is not panic, this is preparation." Chapter 7. Identity over outcome, who you are versus what you want. Goals are fragile. They change with seasons, emotions, and circumstances. One setback, one missed milestone, and suddenly the vision fades. But identity is durable. It doesn't shift with results. It anchors behavior regardless of what the scoreboard says. When you stop chasing outcomes and start embodying identity, you unlock consistency. Because identity doesn't ask, "What do I feel like doing today?" It declares, "This is what I do because this is who I am." Most people set goals with the best of intentions: lose 10 pounds, make 6 figures, finish the project. But goals are distant, and motivation is fleeting. Identity, on the other hand, is immediate. It operates daily, moment to moment. When your actions are tied to identity, discipline becomes less about force and more about alignment. You don't have to push yourself to act like the person you already believe you are. Your behavior follows belief. If you believe you're inconsistent, your habits will match. If you see yourself as someone who always shows up, showing up becomes default. That's why the most powerful mindset shift isn't in setting better goals, it's in adopting a better identity. Not I want to get fit, but I'm an athlete. Not I hope to build discipline, but I'm the kind of person who does hard things. That shift sounds subtle, but it reshapes every decision. Neuroscience supports this. Your brain seeks congruence between identity and action. When the two align, your system relaxes. There's no friction. But when they conflict, cognitive dissonance kicks in. That dissonance creates stress, which eventually leads to quitting. The solution? Start thinking like the person you want to become, and then act accordingly until it becomes natural. This isn't about pretending. It's about training. Identity is not fixed, it's a pattern. A story told over time. You're not born with it. You build it. Every time you take an action aligned with the version of you that's locked in, focused, relentless, that action becomes another brick in the wall. Keep stacking bricks, and soon the structure is solid. You won't just act differently. You'll think differently. You'll expect different results because you've become someone different. To start, define your anchor identity. Write it in the present tense. I am a disciplined finisher. I am mentally sharp under pressure. I am relentless in preparation. Avoid vague aspirations. Be specific and behavioral. Once you define it, reinforce it daily. Speak it. Write it. Build rituals around it. The repetition matters more than the emotion. You're not looking for a motivational rush, you're building mental muscle memory. Identity doesn't mean perfection. You will still miss, you will still fail. But the difference is how you interpret those misses. A person chasing goals might quit after a bad day. A person rooted in identity doesn't. Because failure is no longer personal, it's just data. It's a rep that didn't land. You learn, you adjust. You stay locked in. That's what identity offers: resilience without drama. Think about the performers you admire most. What defines them? It's not their accolades, it's their consistency, their reliability, their unshakable self-definition. When the lights are off and no one is watching, they still act in alignment with who they've chosen to be. That's the kind of power identity brings. It doesn't fade when the mood fades, it persists. The shift from outcome to identity is subtle but transformational. You move from hoping to being. From planning to executing, from chasing wins to embodying the process that creates them. And when that shift is complete, discipline no longer feels like effort. It feels like truth. Identity, not goals, drives sustainable behavior. Believing you are a certain kind of person shapes what you naturally do. Identity is trained by consistent, repeated action, not motivation. What identity are your current actions reinforcing? And is it the one you want? Write one identity statement in the present tense and repeat it aloud each morning for the next 7 days. Chapter 8. The Grit Loop: Habits that Harden Your Resolve. Grit isn't a personality trait, it's a practice. It doesn't show up in moments of glory. It's forged in routines no one sees. You build grit the same way you build strength, through repetition, resistance, and recovery. And the more often you run that loop, the more durable your mindset becomes. Discipline isn't random, it's patterned, and the pattern is what wires grit into your nervous system. Most people misunderstand grit. They think it's about powering through pain or pushing past limits in one grand moment. But grit lives in the micro. It's built in the 5-minute discomfort rep, the disciplined shutdown routine, the decision to finish strong when no one is watching. Those small moments add up, not just as actions but as identity confirmations. Every rep reinforces, this is what I do. Grit is not the absence of struggle, it's persistence inside of it. The brain thrives on patterns. Once a behavior becomes automatic, it moves from effort to default. The key is intentional repetition: cue, routine, reward. This is the habit loop, and it's the foundation of grit building. The cue is the trigger. The routine is the action. The reward is the internal signal that says, well done. Keep going. Build that cycle into your life, and grit starts to form under the surface. Start simple. Pick one daily discomfort habit, something brief but challenging. A cold shower, a timed writing sprint, a silence period with no stimulation. Whatever it is, set a clear start cue, same time or trigger each day. Keep the routine tight and focused. Then close with a reward signal, a checkmark, a breath of pride, a quick reflection. Don't wait for motivation. Run the loop, let the loop rewire your capacity. You're not just doing tasks, you're teaching your brain who's in charge. Every time you follow through, even when it's inconvenient, you're casting a vote for resilience. Those votes compound. You begin to expect yourself to follow through, and when you expect it, you do it. That internal credibility becomes armor. It shields you from the erosion that excuses cause. Grit doesn't come from grinding blindly. It comes from trusting your own consistency. Habits also reduce friction. When the mind doesn't have to negotiate, energy is saved. That energy is redirected toward execution. One of the greatest strengths in performance isn't just intensity, it's reliability. You don't need to crush every day. You just need to show up consistently, even when conditions aren't ideal. Grit lives in that exact moment, the moment where comfort tempts and the loop wins instead. Track it. Don't just hope for momentum, measure it. Use a habit tracker or journal to mark each completed loop. Not for perfection, but for pattern awareness. The days you don't feel like it are the days that build the most mental muscle. Anyone can perform when the mood is high. Grit is revealed when the mood is low, but the action stays. There's a hidden confidence that grows from honoring your own systems. You stop needing hype. You stop looking for external validation. Because you've got the receipts, you've seen yourself execute, you've watched yourself choose hard things, and that self-proof matters more than any speech, quote, or goal. It's yours, built rep by rep, quietly, relentlessly. The grit loop is not glamorous. It's not loud, but it is transformative. It turns discipline from a chore into a rhythm. It makes perseverance less of a choice and more of a habit. You don't need to feel like a warrior to act like one. You just need to complete the loop, one rep at a time, until resolve becomes reflex. Grit is built through daily, repeatable discomfort habits. Habits reduce resistance and build mental durability. Every repetition is a vote for who you believe you are. What is one discomfort habit you can commit to daily that will reinforce mental toughness? Choose one grit loop, cold shower, focus sprint, and repeat it every day this week. Same cue, same time. Chapter 9. Input Overhaul, Detoxing Mental Junk Food. Your brain becomes what it repeatedly consumes, not just food. Information, language, stories, signals. If you're constantly feeding your mind shortcuts, outrage, and victimhood, don't be surprised when your thoughts echo weakness. Inputs shape identity. You cannot expect resilience from a system fed by distraction. You cannot demand discipline from a mind bathed in noise. To sharpen your mindset, start with what you allow in. Most people protect their diets more than their attention. They'll avoid sugar but binge on mindless content. They'll count calories but scroll through mediocrity for hours. What enters through your eyes and ears doesn't just entertain, it programs. And just like junk food wrecks the body, junk information fogs the mind. You may not notice it immediately, but over time it erodes your standards. It lowers your tolerance for challenge. It makes excuses feel normal. Elite performers treat their attention like currency. They invest it where it grows, not where it drains. They don't casually consume. They curate. They know that every article, every podcast, every comment section is either reinforcing their edge or dulling it. Your mindset is built by what you allow to repeat, and repetition doesn't care if you approve, it just rewires. Input becomes belief, belief becomes identity, identity becomes output. Audit your inputs. Start today. For 24 hours, track every piece of media you engage with: music, shows, social feeds, podcasts, conversations. Don't judge it, just document it. Then ask one question: does this support the mindset I want? If the answer is no, remove it. Replace it, not because you're trying to be perfect, but because you're done being passive. This is not about isolation, it's about intention. You don't need to block out the world, but you must filter it. Like a bouncer at the door of a private event, only let in what sharpens. Stories of perseverance, voices of clarity, teachers of discipline. Your brain craves narrative. Give it the right ones. Stories of people who leaned into discomfort, models who mastered their habits, mentors who walked the path you're on. The shift happens quickly. Once you detox the noise, focus returns, doubt fades. You start to feel aligned again, like your brain finally has room to breathe. This isn't coincidence, it's neuroplasticity. The brain adapts to what it hears most. You hear strength, you speak strength. You hear weakness, you think small. Language isn't just communication, it's coding. Change your language, and you change what your brain normalizes. Inputs also include people. The conversations you tolerate become the thoughts you inherit. If the people around you glorify quitting, sarcasm, or victimhood, you absorb it whether you mean to or not. You don't have to cut everyone out. But you do need to set boundaries. Be the thermostat, not the thermometer. Set the tone. Don't absorb it. Choose one upgrade this week: a conversation with someone sharper, a book that stretches you, a podcast that teaches something hard. You'll feel the difference, and your brain will remember it. Curating your inputs doesn't make you rigid. It makes you powerful. You can still laugh, relax, and enjoy light content. But you're no longer feeding your edge garbage and wondering why it's dull. You're feeding it fuel. Precision. Truth. You're training it to focus on strength, not drama, on solutions, not excuses. Every piece of input is a vote for who you're becoming. Stop letting your scroll shape your soul. Stop letting cheap noise infect a sharp mind. You don't need more information. You need better sources, better voices, cleaner fuel. Upgrade what you feed your brain, and it will start producing different results. That's not hype. That's input math. Your mental inputs shape your identity and performance. Junk content lowers your standards without you noticing. Curating what you consume is a core part of mental training. What content or conversation are you allowing that weakens your mindset? Audit your inputs for 24 hours. Remove one and replace it with something that builds clarity or grit. Chapter 10. High-stakes training. Use real life as a mind gym. You don't rise to the level of your preparation, you reveal it. In moments of stress, performance doesn't invent itself. It exposes what's been trained. That's why the highest achievers don't just practice skills, they rehearse pressure. They simulate adversity. They use daily life as a mind gym, not a waiting room. Every difficult moment becomes a rep. Every uncomfortable conversation, a set. This isn't metaphor. It's mindset architecture. The average person avoids challenge and hopes to build confidence. But confidence isn't born in comfort. It's earned in high-stakes moments. And it doesn't require a stage or spotlight. Your day is full of these reps already. That awkward call you've been putting off. That difficult feedback you've hesitated to give. That intense deadline you've been circling. These are not interruptions. They're opportunities. Each one is a stress rep waiting to be used, but only if you lean in. Training under load means choosing the tension on purpose. You don't wait for the world to test you, you test yourself in it, and like physical resistance, the mental weight must be calibrated. Too light and nothing grows, too heavy and form collapses. But the right amount, just outside comfort, is where capacity expands. This is called adaptive stress, the same mechanism that builds muscle builds mindset. Exposure, recovery, and progressive overload. The first step is intentional identification. Each morning, scan your day and highlight one moment of pressure you can lean into. Maybe it's a stretch task, an assertive move, or a conversation that matters. Label it your growth rep. Then approach it with full presence, not avoidance. Before the moment arrives, breathe. Visualize calm under tension. Remind yourself, this is where the edge sharpens. The more you do this, the less surprised your system becomes. Stress loses its sting because it's no longer foreign. You've trained with it. And training rewires response. Your nervous system learns that tension doesn't mean panic. It means precision. Just like a fighter who spars daily isn't rattled in the ring, your exposure to micro-stress builds macro-resilience. You start to perform with control when others spiral. Track these moments. Build a stress log, not to remember the chaos, but to remember your response. What did you feel? What did you do? What worked? What didn't? Reflection is the recovery phase of mental strength. Without it, the rep is wasted. But with it, every test becomes data, and data becomes direction. You're not just surviving challenges. You're shaping your playbook. High-stakes training also breeds identity. When you see yourself repeatedly walk into the fire and operate with calm, a new self-image forms. Not one based on theory, but on experience. You're no longer wondering if you can handle it. You've already handled it. And that confidence sticks. It isn't loud, it's grounded. The kind of knowing that doesn't need external validation, because your own track record speaks louder. The secret weapon here isn't intensity, it's intention. You don't need chaos, you need clarity. Clarity about what moments are worth your edge. Clarity about how to respond when tension hits. Clarity that this isn't punishment, it's preparation. You're not being tested, you're being built. And the builder is you. Every rep you complete under pressure is proof that grit isn't theory, it's trained. You won't remember every easy day, but you'll never forget the days you chose to lean in when it mattered. The moments you performed inside the storm. Those are the days that define a mindset. Those are the sets that shape legacy. Real-life pressure moments are reps to build mental strength. Adaptive stress rewires how you respond under load. Consistent exposure creates calm where others feel chaos. What pressure moment in your day have you been avoiding, and how could you use it as training? Identify one high-stakes task today. Approach it with intention. Afterward, log your response and what you learned. Chapter 11. Relentless under fire. Stay sharp when it matters most. When the pressure spikes, your patterns surface. You don't get to invent a new mindset in the moment. You reveal the one you've trained. That's why relentless doesn't mean non-stop hustle. It means consistent clarity under fire, the ability to execute when others flinch, to stay composed when stakes are high. The world rewards those who stay sharp when it counts, and sharpness is trained, not inherited. Stress doesn't discriminate. Everyone feels it. The question is what you do with it. Some freeze, some rush, some retreat, but the relentless simplify. They return to protocol. They don't trust the chaos of the moment. They trust the systems they've built. In high-pressure situations, they don't chase motivation. They activate preparation. This is the core of mental mastery. Having a process so ingrained that when the lights are brightest you don't have to think, you just execute. Staying sharp under pressure starts with regulation, not reaction. You cannot access your highest skills if your nervous system is in panic mode. Breath is the first anchor. Deep, controlled breathing regulates the vagus nerve, signaling safety to your brain. It slows the heart, calms the mind, and restores decision-making. Before you act, breathe. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. Repeat until you feel centered. That pause is not weakness. It's precision in progress. Next comes refocus. Pressure brings distraction. Your brain wants to scan for threat. You must direct it. The relentless use a narrowing technique. They shrink the moment. One breath, one action. One sentence, nothing beyond the next step matters. By collapsing the frame, you reduce overwhelm. Focus becomes laser tight. You're not trying to control the whole storm, just the next movement inside it. To make this reliable, train with a protocol. Use the 3R system: recognize, reset, refocus. Recognize the stress response. Don't fight it, label it. This is stress. This is normal. Reset with breath. Let your physiology settle. Refocus with a trigger phrase. Something like lock in now or next play. These cues may seem small, but under pressure, they act like rails. They keep your mind from spiraling off track. Relentless performers also rehearse worst-case scenarios, not to breed fear, but to strip fear of power. Visualization is a mental vaccine. It exposes you to pressure in advance. You see the failure, the tension, the conflict, then mentally walk through your response. The mind doesn't fully distinguish imagined experience from real. So when the moment arrives, you've already run it, you've already succeeded inside it. That familiarity reduces panic. It boosts execution. High-pressure sharpness also requires recovery. After the moment passes, debrief. What worked? What didn't? How did your process hold? Mental strength isn't about pretending you're invincible. It's about learning after every rep. Relentless isn't flawless. It's iterative. It adjusts, refines, improves. The next high-stakes moment is coming, and how you sharpen between now and then determines what happens when it does. Above all, remember this: you are not your panic, you are not your adrenaline, you are your patterns, and your patterns are trainable. That means even under fire you have a choice: to collapse into emotion, or to climb into execution, or to be reactive, or to be ready. What looks like composure in others isn't magic, it's practiced, it's repetition, it's readiness. Pressure doesn't care how smart you are. It doesn't reward potential. It rewards poise, the ability to respond when everything's on the line with calm, clarity, and control. That's not a talent. That's a trained reflex, and once it's built, it never leaves you. It shows up when you need it most, when everyone else breaks, and you move forward. Under pressure, you don't rise, you revert to your training. Composure is a skill, not a gift. It's built through protocols and practice. The 3R system: recognize, reset, refocus, anchors mental clarity in chaos. What high-stakes pattern do you default to, and what would your best version do instead? Practice the 3R system today in a stressful situation. Log what triggered you, how you responded, and what shifted. Take care and be well.